Welcome back to For the Culture. My name is Rochelle. If this is your first time here, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Today's video is going to be 5 things I wish I knew before I moved to Kenya. If this is your first time here, my name is Rochelle, like I said, and I've been living in Kenya for over a year. I moved here last year, and I will admit, there were some things that I wish I would have known that would have made my process a lot easier, but we grow, we learn, and we just keep moving forward. But today I'm going to give you the inside scoop of what I would have done differently if I would have been moving to Kenya for the first time. So let's get into it. The first thing that I wish I would have known before moving to Kenya is the fact that getting residency here, it can be a bit difficult. Okay, so there wasn't a lot of residency options when I had first moved to Kenya last year. When I had first moved here, I actually wasn't even eligible for any of the options because even for the ordinary visa, you have to be over 35, and I'm younger than 35. For the work permit, you can get residency if you open a business here. However, that costs $100,000. So, other than that, I wasn't a student, I wasn't working for a Kenyan company, and there was no residency visa that I was eligible for. And I wish I would have done a bit more research regarding that because there are some people who take the risk and choose to live in Kenya on a tourist visa. However, technically, that's not legal. So that was one conundrum that I found myself in. I didn't want to stay here on a tourist visa, but at the time, there wasn't any residency options for me until this year, the digital nomad visa was released, and I was able to apply for residency through the digital nomad visa. However, on top of that, the process is not very simple at all, and it is very expensive. I've been living abroad for 13 years, and this was the most expensive residency visa that I had ever applied for out of the 6 or 7 countries that I lived in. In Mexico, it literally costs less than $100 to get your residency. It's a pretty streamlined process. But even in Brazil, I did get a digital nomad visa in Brazil, and that cost about $300 for a 1 year visa. So even that was a little bit more expensive than I would have liked, but I paid it no problem. And in Kenya, the digital nomad visa, which is the visa that most people qualify for, it costs over $1,200. 1200 US dollars. So that is something that you need to know before coming here. And even outside of the price, it's still a bit of a difficult process because it does seem like you have to know somebody who knows somebody to know somebody. You do have to hire a lawyer or an immigration specialist to get your visa. And unfortunately, you can find out for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it, but I don't think there's any way around it. I don't think there's any way around getting a visa without hiring a lawyer or immigration specialist to push your application. Because I also have messages in my phone of immigration specialists telling me if you don't hire someone to push it through, your application will sit there for over a year. But if you hire a specialist and you pay their fees, of course, then you could get your residency within a couple of months. So this is one thing that I wish I would have known. Residency is very expensive. It's very difficult. You have to know somebody who knows somebody, and you have to kind of pay to get it pushed through. As most people know, bribes, soda money, lunch money, it can go a long way on the continent. And unfortunately, that also applies to getting your residency here. The next thing that I wish I would have known before moving to Kenya is, as I mentioned earlier, you have to have a work permit in order to open a business, in order to legally register your business here in Kenya. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is you need to prove that you have $100,000 liquid, $100,000 in capital to even apply for the work permit. The bright side is once you invest $100,000 and you get your work permit, you can open as many businesses as you would like under that work permit as long as you register them through Kenya. Most people do not have $100,000 laying around. Most entrepreneurs who have been running their business for a couple years or 2 to 3 years do not have $100,000 in capital. So you probably wouldn't be able to register your business here in Kenya. However, the bright side is with the digital nomad visa that recently came out, you are able to work in Kenya for a foreign-based company. With the digital nomad visa, you're not able to work in Kenya or make money in Kenya or open a business in Kenya. But if you work remote or you're an entrepreneur working online, you are able to work online with the digital nomad visa. So I wish I would have known that you need large amounts of capital to even register your business here. And they take it very, very seriously. You do not want to find out the hard way that they will shut down your business if you have not followed the legal process. All right. So that's one important thing that I think other people should know that I was not very educated about when I first got here. Number three, I wish I would have known that Kenya is not cheap. Okay, especially if you come here as a foreigner and you don't have access to inside deals or you don't know how to navigate fruit markets, vegetable markets, just markets in general. It can be very expensive and it can get very expensive very quickly. When I had first moved here, I had a couple housing problems and my money started disappearing. Okay, so whatever money you have saved up, I would say double it because getting settled in and especially securing housing, your money will disappear very quickly. And unfortunately, like anywhere else in the world, there are some people that try to take advantage of foreigners or people that are newly moving to the country. And I also experienced that. For example, when I was living in Kileleshwa, I found a nice studio. It was furnished. It was high quality. It was a nice studio. And Kileleshwa is an expensive area. So I was like, okay, I'm going to cough up this $800 for this studio because at least I know that it's high quality and it's secure, right? Okay, so I called the landlord and I asked her, hey, I would like to stay for another 2 or 3 months. What's the rate if I did a short term lease with you? Now, I was assuming that because I was staying longer, she would, reduce the price and work with me a bit, but she actually ended up doubling the price. And she was charging me over $1,600 to stay in a studio apartment in Nairobi, Kenya. And that's just one of many examples of how some people are exploited and taken advantage of. And of course, I didn't pay it. I just moved on. But it can be a bit difficult navigating here as a foreigner, and things can get expensive very quickly. Another example is the supermarkets. If you do your grocery shopping in supermarkets only, and you only feel comfortable in supermarkets, you will easily spend about $300 a month only on groceries if you only shop in the supermarkets, which is where most foreigners feel comfortable shopping because they may not know which markets to go to or how to navigate the markets. So that's one thing you should keep in mind. If you plan on moving here, I would say plan to integrate into the local culture and go to the local markets to save a bit of money. You still may get charged a little bit more because they can tell that you're a foreigner, but it is significantly cheaper than supermarkets. So that's one piece of advice. Get an assistant, get someone to help you with housing, get someone to help you navigate markets because housing can get very expensive very quickly. And if you're only shopping at supermarkets, that can get very expensive very quickly as well. The next thing that I wish I would have known before I moved to Kenya is the difference of culture and perception. So, of course, with any country that you move to, cultural differences are going to be a factor. Even culture shocks may be a factor. And I think to an extent, this is just something that you have to learn as you go. Moving abroad is always a risk, and you're not always going to know everything before you move abroad. I did research the culture a bit. I did research the cultural differences a bit, but there was a lot of things that I had to learn just on the ground through trial and error. I do think that Nairobi is the most modernized city in Kenya. So if you're living in Nairobi, you might not experience any extreme culture shocks because they have access to a lot of American culture, even Jamaican culture, European culture, so many different cultures. Nairobi is very diverse, but were some cultural differences that I didn't fully understand before I moved here. For example, polygamy is legal here. And a lot of people practice polygamy. It is widely accepted and widely practiced. So that's one thing that you have to know before moving to a country. What religion is the most popular there? What are their dating practices? Are you okay with living in a polygamous society? So those are the type of things that I think is important to research. And that's one thing that I wish I would have known. The last thing that I wish I would have known before moving to Kenya is the fact that a lot of people here are fighting for a better life and are protesting against the government. So if you're wanting to move to Kenya, you have to be prepared to stand with Kenyans when they're fighting for a better life and fighting for a better community, and also how to stay safe during the protests, because there have been about 4 or 5 protests since I've lived here. And most of them are in CBD, but they might also spread outside of the CBD area. And you have to know how to stay up to date when it comes to safety. Tap into local communities so that you can stay safe during these protests, because sometimes the city, like downtown, may shut down for a day or 2 or more. So you have to be ready to stand with Kenyans, understand that they're fighting for a better life, fighting for a better future. And if the city shuts down for a couple days, that's just something that you have to persevere through and work around. But it is important to know. I do think that is something important that people need to know. People are fighting for a better life. Protests are more common. There might be a few protests a year, but I think that it is very feasible to just stay safe if you stay inside your home or stay out of the downtown area, the CBD area. I hope this video is helpful to someone out there, because these are things that I honestly was not aware of before I moved to Kenya, and things that I just had to learn step by step, trial and error, lessons and losses. So, yes, I do think that I have fully integrated into the culture here. I'm really glad that I made the decision to move to Kenya. And I really hope that this video helps someone out there that is on the same path or interested in the same type of thing. So I'll catch you guys in the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share.